Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello and welcome back to All for United's tactical preview. Looking ahead to, it's got to be a must-win game, hasn't it? Surely against arguably the worst Everton team in our living memory. Stu, Marcus, fantastic to have you guys on.
Pleasure.
We'll jump straight into it. Stu, we'll step away from the tactics for just a second, because if we don't get a result against this Everton team, what happens then? Seriously, what happens then?
It's a curious case, in my humble opinion, of two sets of players that seem to be hugely annoyed at the sackings of two managers, Everton's manager and obviously Ole Solskjaer, because none of them, Everton and Manchester United, can really be bothered at this period in the title race. Not title race, should I say, in the period of the season. And it's strange, really, because Everton are fighting potential relegation at the moment. I mean, they are really in relegation form. There's a massive problem there. And we just can't be bothered. I think our players have looked at it and thought, I'm not playing Conference League. I'd rather finish 8th and 7th. Now, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Champions League, whether or not City or Liverpool go on to win it, what the ramifications are likely to be for us. But if we don't turn up on Saturday, then I don't really know what it says about our current crop. I mean, I've been really vocal, as you guys know, about certain elements and player blame and that type of thing. And it's hard to look beyond anything but a bunch of school children who just, they can't be bothered. Their 4th grade teacher's been removed, and they don't like the new sub teacher or whatever. It just isn't right. There's just something wrong about it. And if we don't get a win, because we're drawing games, we're not actually losing games per se, we're just drawing games. We go a goal behind and we think, oh crikey, what are we going to do about this? And then we go up the field and score. And then for the next 10 minutes, we play keep ball, which we can't do that well because we don't have the players that can control the football. So it's a very strange situation for both teams. I'm pretty sure Everton fans are quite excited. They never really took to Benitez for obvious reasons, because of the Liverpool connection. It was never going to work. And whether you like Benitez or not, he's what's known as a steady manager. He's a Roy Hodgson type manager, very, very clever, very steady, will get the best out of the group of players that he's got. And I think Everton wouldn't be in this position still under Benitez. I could be wrong, but, because I don't have a crystal ball. But I would suggest that they would have been in a slightly better position. And then Benitez would have had a decision to make in the summer. So in a nutshell, I find it bizarre what's happening to both clubs. I find it bizarre what's happening to both sets of players. And I think if we don't, as I say, turn up with some kind of passion and, being able to believe that we're going to go and win the game of football on Saturday or Sunday, actually, this week. I've not
Saturday, yeah, lunchtime.
Then, well, if we don't get a result, you can kiss top 4 goodbye. And I'm not a defeatist. I always think, I played 5-a-side last night. We got absolutely hammered. When I mean hammered, we got absolutely hammered. But I still believe we could win. Even when we were 7 goals down, I still thought we could win. It didn't materialise, by the way. But that's one for you, James. Stick that in the scrapbook. It doesn't happen often, pal. It does not happen often.
I'll remember this. I'll bring this back up in a couple of years when you're insulting me. But Marcus, let's take a look. Let's head back a week. Disappointing result against Leicester. Disappointing performance as well. Obviously, there's a lot of talk. Maybe United players' heads aren't in it. But I think if we look deeper than that, the setup, the squad, everything that affected that result and that performance, what was so bad about it? Why were we just so depressing to watch for 90 minutes on Saturday?
I think the one common thing I'm hearing from a lot of Manchester United fans is a lack of professionalism and a lack of mentality in that Manchester United team. I think that's the one thing we can all agree on, is an issue at Manchester United. I know we all want to find one issue and one solution, and the reality is there's so many issues, but I think if there's one we can all agree on, it's definitely a lack of mentality. And I think Stu made an excellent point there. I think when you look at this Manchester United playing crop at the moment, like, there really is no excuses for some of the results this season. And the crazy thing is, I could actually see us losing to Everton, which is scary to say because we shouldn't be losing to a team that is fighting relegation. Now, it's okay for us fans to say, oh, we don't want to be in the Conference League, so I hope we finish 8th, blah, blah, blah. But the players can't be thinking that. And yet we think they are thinking that. That should tell you how bad the performances have been. It's really, really crazy. And I think it's not just the Leicester performance. You can pick pretty much any performance this season, apart from maybe a handful, and really say that it's been a lack of professionalism, a lack of effort. I don't think Rolf Rangnick is to blame at all. Yes, he's made some questionable decisions in terms of subs. Yes, he's made some questionable decisions in terms of who he's continued to start despite their form, right? Like the whole Lindelof Maguire thing. But at the end of the day, he's an interim manager. He's an interim manager. And so for me, I've got to look at the players. And what you said about Rafa Benitez and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is spot on. These teams are in very similar situations. Everton wouldn't want to play us at any other time rather than right now. It's almost like these two teams are coming to meet each other at the perfect time. I mean, we're in the worst form we've been in a long, long time. And Everton are in the worst form that I probably remember seeing them in since I've been alive, since I've been on this earth, actually. Because I don't remember Everton being in a relegation battle, at least since I've been watching football. So it really is an interesting time. And if we don't turn up in this game, I don't know. I really don't know. Like we have to, right? Like we have to. I know a lot of people have said that this season, but this is the game where things have to turn around.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Well, Stu, looking back at the Leicester game again, obviously the big story out of it was that Cristiano Ronaldo didn't play, and whether that impacted how bad our performance or not is impossible to know. But did that performance show just how important Ronaldo really is to this team? Because he's been getting a lot of stick recently. Obviously, he's not scoring as many goals as we'd maybe want to, but you look at that performance without him and desperately poor, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, our team balance was all wrong. I said on many occasions, I don't like Pogba out on the left. I don't like Pogba and Fernandes in the same team, and you can't play Fred, McTominay, Pogba, and Fernandes together. It just doesn't work. Nothing works about that. And now, if we popped in Matic and Fred, so you've got that attacking box-to-box player, I would have removed Pogba out of the system completely, put Fernandes back in, and used Alanga as the focal point as our 9. Now, look, I've gone on record of saying that a 9 has got to be a predator. He's not there yet, but he's got the instincts better than a certain other player that I've mentioned that doesn't have the instincts. And what I mean is he can play through the middle because of he's quite athletic, he's big and he's strong. So missing Ronaldo, yes and no. What we did miss was a target man. That is a focal point, was what we actually missed, potentially, rather than the person itself. Although you can always rely on Ronaldo to put one in from some ridiculous angle or just whatever, and then gives maybe Rashford and Sancho the attacking options on the wings. But the problem started, and the problem will always be, Pogba's too lazy to play in the same team as Bruno. Bruno at the moment is having a dip in form. He's giving the ball away more than he's holding on to it. He's not having the effect and influence in the game that he should be. And so when you've got the likes of McTominay, if he's having a bad game, Fred always has a bad game when Scott has a bad game, and vice versa. So it was a disaster, really. It was a recipe for disaster. He's got to completely change it, in my humble opinion. And I think it might play into our hands a little bit, because I think they'll probably start Calvert-Lewin on Saturday morning, and that is a better option for Maguire. He's a big, tall, strong lad. Is Calvert-Lewin. Maguire will love that. He likes to wrestle. Calvert-Lewin likes to fight, you see. He likes to fight a centre half. And that's what Maguire wants, because although he's quite good in the air and he does move a bit, he's not exactly blessed with pace. And so it's easy for Maguire to track. So I would play a holder. I'll play Matic. And I will go through this again. I would run Fred, Bruno, and then I'll play a front three, whoever that may well be. But the other thing you've got to consider is the wide players. They've got to protect our fullbacks because we've got real issues on our fullback issue. And don't forget, De Gea is not a 12-yard box player. He is a 2-yard line player, so to speak. So we must make sure, and this is why I'm really pleased that we've got potentially Calvert-Lewin. They shouldn't get in behind us too much, although there are issues there with Richarlison. He's quite quick and he can get in behind. And I think, didn't their striker get injured? Their other striker, is it Gordon? Didn't he get injured, or have I got that wrong? I think he's injured, isn't he? So they're not blessed. They won't have Donny in the middle. Dele Alli's not pulling up any trees at Everton at the moment. I think if we play a system that allows Bruno to be our floating player again, Fred gets the ball to him, Matic can mop up. Bring Rashford back in. I would, sooner or later, he's got to pull his socks up. He's got to play himself out of his issue. Bring Rashford back in. Alanga up top if we haven't got Ronaldo, or if we don't have Ronaldo, I'd put bench Alanga and I'd play Sancho, Rashford and Ronaldo. That's what I would do. So in answer to your question, a bit long-winded, apologies. It's more of a focal point rather than Ronaldo against Leicester. That was our issue, and Pogba and Bruno.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, Mox. I'll come to you. We'll stick with Ronaldo. Obviously, it's almost been a full season of him here. He's a completely different player to when we first saw him, but I think we've had long enough now to judge the sort of player he is now. What exactly is it that he offers to this United team? And is it something, is he a player that we need to keep hold of over the summer? Is this contribution that he's offering enough to confirm that?
Yeah, I think the first answer is, obviously Ronaldo just brings goals to this team. I think that's the short answer. What I would like him to bring to the team and what I would like him to offer if he was to stay, for me, I said this when we signed Cristiano Ronaldo, for me, it's actually got nothing to do with what he does on the field. It's about what he does off the field, in my personal opinion. When we signed Cristiano Ronaldo, the way I tried to kind of justify it in my head was, okay, he is quite old, he's past his prime, but maybe the positive of signing a player like him is that we actually need the thing that we've been talking about for the last several years. We need leaders. We need somebody with a winning mentality. We need somebody who's actually going to lift up that dressing room. We need somebody who knows when to be kind, when to be Mr. Winning Team photo, but also somebody who knows when to not be such a nice guy. Somebody who knows when to give people a bollocking. Somebody who knows when to walk into the dressing room and say, okay, lads, we need to get serious now. What happened in that first half is unacceptable. That's what I thought Ronaldo was bringing to the table. And because I haven't really seen a change in the attitude and a change in the mentality, I'm not convinced that, he is somebody that we really need to hold on to. Now, I'm not saying Ronaldo is the problem. I'm just simply saying that he's not the solution, at least not alone. But having said that, there's a lot of other players I would get rid of in that team before Ronaldo. So, yeah, I would keep him because I don't really think spending money on a striker now makes any sense. So for me, just by default, just because of how bad our problems are and the fact that there's bigger issues in that team, I would address other areas first. Try keep a hold of Ronaldo for an extra year or two. Try keep a hold of whoever else who can play up front. I think Martial's leaving in the summer. Obviously, Cavani looks like he's leaving, so it looks like we're going to have to buy a striker anyways. But I wouldn't go on and spend 100 million on Harry Kane or Haaland or anything like that just yet. I would address other issues in the team. Try keep a hold of Ronaldo and work from there basically. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, so it's a valid point, 100%. Stu, I'll come to you at the last point on the Leicester game before we look ahead. I just wanted to see if you've got any other assessments of why we played so poorly. We've got to disregard the fact that the players might be on holiday. I suppose it's all hypothetical. Actually, on that pitch, why were we so bad?
Look, there are some occasions where you've got to. I talk about a lot about going rogue in matches. Now, look, when a player's or when a team is walking onto the pitch like Manchester United do, if I'm in that starting 11, I'm looking around and I'm looking to see if I give the ball away, who's on my case. If I don't control the ball, who's in my ear saying, "Fucking hell, Stu, what are you doing? Come on, mate. Sort your game out." I'm looking around for somebody to tell me, "Stu, you're 10 yards out of position, pal. Why are you 10 yards out of position? You know where you need to be." Because all this is all the kind of stuff that I do. You know, even on a Monday night on a five-a-side, I'm a nightmare to play with, absolute nightmare. But I'm playing with 4 other players who are exactly the same as me. You know, we've all got this will to win. We don't have this will to win. You know, sometimes in a game of football, and we didn't do it against Leicester, and we should have done it against Leicester, you've got to put your foot on the ball and take a time out. You need a player in there that will just calm the nerves, calm the tension, get the ball, knock it 5 yards. But make sure, get it back, knock it another 5 yards, take it back. You don't even have to move. You just have to keep the ball moving. And, you've got to get fluency in the game. We don't have any real fluency in any game that we do. Even when we have got the ball and we have got possession, we've had the, possession for 5 minutes, we don't do anything with it. We don't understand how to use the football, and it's disappointing when you're dealing with, a group of so-called elite professional footballers. There was something that Brendan Rodgers does quite well, and it's something you'll notice that Ten Hag will bring to us if he comes. They play the pendulum effect beautifully. They attack nicely together as a unit and defend nicely together as a unit, and that's very, very difficult to get at. So sometimes you've got to get in there. You've got to pop a challenge in. You've got to make sure you hit somebody hard. You've got to take a gamble and take 1 or 2 players on, but do it out wide. Don't do it in the middle because, so if you do get a turnover out wide, it's very difficult for them to progress the ball. Do it through the middle. They can progress the ball a lot easier. You've got to make sure that your fullbacks are constantly talking to the wide players, whoever the wide players are. I need you back 5 yards, tuck in 5 yards. When you get the ball, drop it to me. I'll ping it into the... You've got to be communicating and talking. And we don't do that. And one thing that we've stopped doing, and I've said this again, I'm going to repeat myself anymore, we don't attack the diagonals anymore. When we attack the diagonals, we were absolutely awful to defend against. We were shocking. The people were backing off and backing off and backing off, penalty after penalty after penalty, because we were committing players. Please, somebody tell me the last time we committed a player in a dangerous area where we actually went to the player and said, I'm going to run you, mate. I'm going to run you. What are you going to do? Foul me? You're not going to stop me because I'm going to run you. We don't have all of this. Fred was by far our shining light. He at least attempted to utilize the ball and transition the ball. I'm not really sure Bruno likes the false 9. We don't have the players, by the way, for a false 9. Let's just be clear about that. We don't have those players. I don't know whether Bruno liked the false 9. He appeared to me that he didn't know what he was doing. And again, a player of Bruno's caliber, hold on, get the ball, deal with it, put your foot on it, walk around with it, just take the sting out of any game of football. And that's what you have to do. And you know what? It's so basic, but we don't do that. So what you tend to do, you invite pressure. And when you invite pressure and teams get that hunger and they get that real grip of the game, they'll just hit you and hit you and hit you. And if we haven't got the knowledge, the common sense, which it really is common sense, to deal with it and move quickly, you're never going to win a game of football. And that's what we don't. We get a goal. We maybe attack, okay, after that for 5 minutes. And then that's it. We revert to type. It's a big problem for us, mate.
Well, I'll follow up on this with you then. This is a problem that we seem to have at the end of every managerial stint, where the players, there's no willingness to fight. There's no willingness to win as such. How do we? Obviously, there's an issue with these players, but you can't sell every single person in the same window and buy a whole new team. So realistically, how do we, if it's even possible, how do we eradicate this issue?
You need to eradicate the issue. Well, first and foremost, right, any footballer, whether you play for Manchester United or not, that takes that pitch, that crosses that white line, if you're not there to win, you may as well just sit in the stands. Because you should be there to win. Whenever you cross that white line, you should be there to win for training. You should be there to win every single personal battle in your life, because as a professional sportsman, you're supposed to be competitive. I must win. I must win. I must win. It should be fucking ingrained in you. It is me. It's completely ingrained in me. I hate losing. I hate losing in training. I hate losing. I'm not the best winner either. I'm a miserable git when I win, but I'm a terrible, terrible loser, terrible winner. And you need these kind of you need these people around you. You need people like me around you all the time, because you're constantly chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping and chipping. And you want your teammate and colleague to tell you to turn around and shut the fuck up, because he's concentrating on his own game. That's what you want to hear. You want to shut up. I'm concentrating on my own game. And then you want them to have a pop at you, because they're pushing you, you're pushing them. We need players. The players he gets in, we don't want a Haaland. You know, look, we're not going to get Marcel Brozovic. He's just signed a new deal with Inter Milan. He would have been absolutely perfect for us for the last couple of years. Frank Kesse's gone to Barcelona. He would have been perfect for us. There are players out there that probably wouldn't cost a huge amount of money that are perfect for us. And I think we need to start scanning our scouting network a lot better and get what I call workmanlike players. You need 8 workmanlike players within your team, and you can sprinkle some stardust on later if you want. But you need the workmanlike players. Those players are going to pull up their socks, go in there and play for you. Play for Manchester United, play for you, play for your colleagues, play for the fans. You need that type of player. And one more point before I hand it over to Marcus. You want players that can coach, absolutely coach on the pitch. You want players that can be, you're 2 yards too front, I need you back. If you're not back, he's going to skin you quite easily. Don't get tight to him because he's turned you twice in the last 10 minutes. You need people coaching you all the time, okay? And it doesn't happen at our club. It happens at the likes of Wolves. It will happen at Leicester. Johnny Evans is a brilliant coach on the pitch. Absolutely. James Justin raves about him. Johnny Evans is always in his ear telling him where to be. And Justin was brilliant against us. Castagna, again, Johnny Evans, what he'll do, he'll not only, communicate with Ndidi or whoever, Madison, whoever's in front of him, he'll communicate to the wingers, to the fullbacks and the goalkeeper. You've got Schmeichel talking to the fullbacks, talking to Evans, talking to the midfielders. This is what happens in a football team. And, people would think, wow, that's amazing. It's not amazing. It's just conversation during the game. It's always conversation. And if somebody fucks up, don't clap him. Fucking tell him. You made him right balls up at that. Don't do it again. When you get it, play it simple. Anyway, I could go on forever, Matt. I'm sorry. I'm having a rant.
I know you could go on about it forever.
It just winds
talk about the good old. Anyway, we'll look forward to the game ahead. I'll come to you, Marcus. Obviously, the first question is immediately from that Leicester game, what needs changing tactically with the setup going into the Everton game?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because I hear a lot of fans who are saying, you know what, the season's over, just play the kids, and it's just like, okay, I get it, play the kids, play the youth because the senior players aren't doing it, but that's unrealistic for 2 reasons. Number one, if we do bring youth players into the system, like the likes of Anthony Elanga, I don't think that's going to end well long term. You want youth players to come into a system that is stable. You want youth players to come into an environment where there's 4 or 5 senior players that they can look up to and they can say, oh, that's how I play football. You don't want youth players to come in and be like, oh, it's a shambles. I'm just going to do what I want and score as many goals as possible so that the coach can pick me, because that doesn't do anything long term. You're not evolving. You're not growing as a player. So that's the first reason. The second reason is, we're Manchester United. We've still got a shot at top 4. Yes, most of us fans don't believe it, but Ralf Rangnick and every member of that dressing room has to, in their head, still be fighting for something. You can't just walk over the white line every Saturday thinking, oh, top 4's gone anyways. It's like, man, you're an elite level sportsman. I mean, what Stu said there earlier about, growing up and having a certain type of mentality, it's 100% true. My father used to tell me the same thing all the time as well. Whenever I would enter gaming tournaments when I started competing in high school, even though I wasn't that great, he would always tell me, you're there to win. You're there to get first place. That's your goal. Even if you don't get it, that's the goal. That's what you're there to do. So keep playing until the last game. And that's, kind of the message here. In terms of tactics, what I would change tactically, I agree that Pogba can't play on the left-hand side. So whatever happens, you either bench him or you play him to the middle. Now, I think that everybody thinks that benching him is the best possible option because we've just failed to fit him into the midfield in a way that's, productive. So for me, unless you're going to play him in the 10 and bench Bruno, which I don't agree with, by the way. I love Bruno, as everybody knows, but, that's an alternative that I'm willing to explore. You have to have one or the other. You can't have both in that team without a CDM. So for me, what needs to change tactically is you keep Fred in the team because he seems to be the only positive amongst the senior players. Then maybe you play Matic next to him. Maybe you play Bruno ahead of him. And then in the front three, I mean, I don't know if it makes much of a difference, to be honest. Obviously, if Ronaldo's there, you've got to pick him. Sancho, you've got to pick him. Between Rashford and Elanga, I can't make up my mind, because on the one hand, I love Elanga, but he's a young kid, you know. He's a young kid. It's not fair on him to play every single week and have to deliver when there's a senior player who we know has the quality to play in that Manchester United team, but has just gone missing for the last few months, you know? So I really don't know. I'd probably just play Rashford to give Elanga a bit of a break and kind of ease him into that team, because again, you don't want him to pick up the bad habits of this team. You don't want him to develop into the players that we watch every week that frustrate us. So that's what I would do. In terms of the back four, I think you keep it more or less the same. I don't think that makes too much of a difference. I'm personally tired of going in on individuals, because, you know, it's reached that point in the season where it's like, we all know who the common culprits are. There's no need to go on a toxic rant every weekend about it. But yeah, that's the only thing I would really change in terms of the way we play. I mean, what else can you change, really? I mean, if nothing's changed at this point, you just got to go with the same thing. If you're Ralph, I think one thing we definitely do need to improve, something that doesn't require, you know, technical excellence or brilliance or wizardry, is definitely know when to keep the ball a little bit better. Because I think when we go 1-0 down and we attack the other end of the pitch, that's great. But when you get back into the game, calm it down again, take control, take the attacking initiative. We don't seem to know how to do that. Like we don't seem to know when to pass side to side and slow the game down, as opposed to when to just go gung-ho and take risks, because there's been too many situations where we have been in the lead this season. I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head. I'm sure somebody will figure it out in chat, but there's been a few examples this season where we have been leading games. I think Villa's a good example, actually, when we lost the 2-1 lead and Coutinho scored. Like, there was no need to keep attacking in that game. That was the one game where sideways passing would have been acceptable. That was the one game where we would have been happy to see McFred, you know, just passing it back to Maguire, back to Lindelof, just keep rotating into that little square, you know? Like, there's a time and a place to pass side to side, and it seems like we just don't know when to do it. At the beginning of the game, when we should be attacking, when we should be taking risks, we're slow, we're lethargic. Then at the end of the game, when we should be shutting things up, all of a sudden we decide now is the time to actually play attacking football. It just doesn't make sense. So that's what I would be focusing on if I was Ralph. And I think, look, as much as I don't blame Ralph for anything, he definitely does need to take some of the responsibility, because I would like to see him be more active on the touchline. I would like to see him actually pull players to the side and say, hey, I need you to stop doing this. I would like to see a bit more of an animated coach. You know, that's the only thing I think that can improve under these circumstances.
Yeah, I'd actually agree with you there. I think that's not a point I've really registered before. But yeah, Ralph definitely does have to shoulder some of the blame. Obviously, he's given an impossible task, should I say. But yeah, I agree. Well, Stu, I want to talk to you about the midfield, because obviously Pogba and Bruno have been mentioned a lot. You know, Bruno, as we said, isn't in his best form at all. And Pogba, we've only got a few months left of him. So, you know, is there in your... Because I look at this midfield that we could create. You look at when Pogba was at his best for United in a midfield of Matic, Herrera and Pogba. We still have Matic. We have a fairly like-for-like Herrera replacement in Fred, and we still have Pogba. Is it? I don't know about you, but it seems baffling to me that we haven't tried this out yet. Would that be a potential option if Bruno's form doesn't pick up?
Yeah, look, it's a good option for me, but the problem is you can't say to this fan base, Bruno needs a rest or Bruno needs to be taken out of the equation. You can't say to the fan base is just damn right, tell you don't know what you're talking about. And I don't quote stupid stats here. Well, he's got 58 goals in 70 odd. Oh, you know, I'm not interested in that bollocks. You know, you're only as good as your last game in football. That's it. You know, if you were, you know, having a poor game, then, you know, you run the risk of not making the starting 11. Okay. I always used to be white as a ghost on a Thursday evening. Okay. I used to play regular. Always play, but I never took my place for granted. I'd be white as a ghost, white as a sheet. My mates used to laugh at me until I saw my name, and then I could breathe, and I could then start concentrating on what I was going to do on Saturday afternoon. But I used to petrify. I used to hate it. I used to give my all in training, and if it wasn't enough, then it wasn't enough. But you know, for me, being on the bench was embarrassing. It shouldn't be, but it was. It was embarrassing because I should be out there, and it's my fault I'm not out there. But when you're picked week in, week out constantly, you get complacent. it's just life. Oh, well, I'm not, I can have a bad game. I can play at 70%. It's not going to matter because I'm still going to play, because I might just have that one moment of magic during the game, or those 2 moments of magic during the game, or there might be a penalty. And if Ronaldo is not on the pitch, they know I'm there to take it. And I think that's a big issue. And I think it's a massive issue for Bruno at the moment. I was asked a couple of weeks ago about his contract. Would you, what did I think of that? And I said, no, I would have done it in the summer. I wouldn't have done it now. I would have waited to see, to see what happens. But now, by giving Bruno this contract, you remove Pogba immediately out the equation. You're gone in the summer. We're not extending the contract. You're gone. So you then focus on Bruno if that's what you want to do. And then you then play the Matic, the Fred, and the Bruno. I tend to agree with you. I think Pogba was very best when he had a Herrera by the side of him, because he knew what Herrera was going to do. Herrera was going to go in and do the box-to-box stuff. He was the one that's going to do the man marking when needed. He was the one that's going to do the tackling, the real hard stuff, do all the dirty work that Pogba doesn't want to do. Bruno won't do that alongside him. He needs that same Herrera. He needs that same Fred type of player with an expert CDM. Bruno's not going to do that. So, I'll get slammed for it. I don't really care, because people who slam you over Bruno never really look at the game properly, never read the game properly. They just see, the goal, but they don't actually see the full 90 minutes. And so I think you're right, James. But it would be Bruno instead of Pogba for me, because Pogba's not done anything enough to convince me that he's going to be the turning point between now and the end of the season to get us to top 4. He just hasn't done it in the 5 years he's been back for me. He's had a handful of great games. Bruno at the minute needs to take a long look at himself alongside Rashford, alongside a lot of players within that squad, and say, I'm not performing. I signed a 280 grand a week contract. Why? I haven't earned that contract. I need to make sure now I'm earning it. I was on last night, and somebody, I raised a point about Rashford, because there's been a lot of questions about him at the moment. How can he get back to his very, very best? And I floated something quite strange, really, that most people probably wouldn't agree with. But he's got to take himself out of his luxurious lifestyle where people are telling him he's the best at everything he does and a yes man all the time. There's got nobody there telling him and bollocking him. He needs to go out and rent a 2 up, 2 down again, drive around in a Ford Focus. He needs to go and live there for 6 months. Go home there instead of your 8-bedroom mansion. Limit yourself to a budget of £2,000 a month. Start living at that before you signed your first contract, when your mum was desperately trying to feed you. He's forgotten all of this. And unfortunately, football is littered with absolute magical, talented footballers who never made it. Because Dele Alli, I think Dele Alli is another great example of a Marcus Rashford. He was amazing at MK Dons. He was probably earning £1,500 a week then, maybe £1,000, maybe even less. So he loved his football. He was desperate for his football. Turns up at Everton in ripped jeans and a Rolls Royce. Hasn't kicked a ball, has he? That I know of, that I can remember. These are the types of things you have to consider. And the clubs aren't strong enough anymore. The clubs aren't strong enough. The parents aren't strong enough, because, Rashford's mom, lovely as she is, who's earned a Louis Vuitton bag, but she doesn't want to give it up. She won't want to give up this luxurious lifestyle. And somebody's got to get him, sit him down and push him back into what it used to be like when you were thriving, when you were getting up at 6 a.m. and kicking a football around with your mates, when you can't wait to get to training. You were there an hour early, 2 hours, after, when everyone else is gone, you're still there. He's got to find that, but only he can do it. And Bruno needs to reaffirm. He needs to start driving his Mini again. When Bruno first came, he was in a Mini Cooper. Now he's in his Porsche Panamera or whatever. You've got to get out of that mindset. Why did Manchester United buy me? Fucking prove it again, man. Same with Pogba, same with everybody. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Marcus, I want to stick with Bruno because obviously, like I said, he has had a bit of a dip in form now. I don't know if it's something to look too deep into, but it feels like we're sort of going the Pogba route with him, where he doesn't have a defined role anymore. You know, we sort of, when he first came in, he was doing so well. We knew exactly what Bruno Fernandes was about. But now, in the space of 5 minutes, you'll see him picking up the ball in between the two centre backs on the halfway line, sitting on the last man in front of the striker, trying to find little holes in between the defence and the midfield. And it just feels like it's all a bit too hectic for him. So there's no consistency there. So how do we get Bruno Fernandes playing the way he has done for the last 2 years or so?
I think it might be an unpopular opinion, but I actually think when Ten Hag comes here, we will see a better version of Bruno. Now, we might not. He might just stay the same. Who knows? Because when I look at Bruno Fernandes, I don't see a player that lacks raw technical ability. I see a player who does have the technical ability, who knows how to control a ball. He knows how to kick a ball 40 yards, 30 yards. He also knows how to play a 5-yard pass. He has the talent there. But I see a player who doesn't have the decision making, who doesn't have the mentality. And that comes down to repetition, that comes down to coaching, and that also comes down to understanding, like the coach telling him exactly what he needs to do. We've heard the stories about how at Manchester City, Pep Guardiola is so detailed and finicky with these tactics that as a player, you just have to focus on one little thing, and everybody else focuses on one little thing, and together it somehow makes this majestic system. I think that's what a player like Bruno Fernandes needs. And a lot of the things that he needs to improve when it comes to the game, again, it's not things that are talent, oriented. It's things that are skill oriented. And anyone can learn a skill as long as they're willing to put in the time and put in the work, especially an elite level sportsman. I do agree with Stu about the whole thing of, a lot of these players becoming too soft. Now, I'm not quite so sure about, going downtown and living in a cheaper apartment, but I do get the gist of what Stu is saying, and I do agree with it metaphorically, at least, because I think it is something that I've been talking about for a long time, and you almost can't bring it up. And I hate to, drift away towards Marcus Rashford again, but in Rashford's case, it's hard to talk about it because he's such a good person, quotation mark, because of the work he does and some of the political affiliations he has. It's hard to criticize him because people are like, what are you saying? Are you saying it's a bad thing to be a good person? It's like, no, I'm not. It's just, focus on football a little bit more, and it's like this weird territory where you can't criticize him because the whole positive PR thing for me personally, it does get obnoxious after a while, like, genuinely good people don't need to take a photo and show you, oh, look at how good I am. They're just good people, and I feel like what's happening at Manchester United is the social media culture of, you see it with the winning team photos, right? Like it's this culture of this social media culture of, look at us, look at how hard we're working, look at how hard we're training, look at what we're doing. And it's like, but where's the actual evidence of that, And I think in the case of Bruno Fernandes, he simply put, he does need to put a lot of time in the training ground and just focus on himself and just isolate himself from all of the noise surrounding the club, And I think a lot of Manchester United players would benefit from that a lot. I'm hoping when Ten Hag gets here that we will start to see that. But again, that's a topic for another day. We still got a long way to go till the summer. So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, time moves very, very slowly when you're not winning games, doesn't it? But
yeah.
Well, Stu, I'll leave the floor open to you for the closing statement because obviously you need to get going in a minute.
I do, yeah.
So Man United versus Everton. Final statement. Go on.
Do you know something? I've got to agree with Marcus. Not that I don't agree with Marcus. That came out wrong. That came out wrong. I think we could be on the end of a shock defeat. I think Everton could actually turn us over. And I was thinking about it today. I thought it will be a typical Manchester United performance to go to Goodison and lose, and probably something like 2-0, because the way that Everton are playing, they're so unpredictable. Everyone would think that we could go and we could absolutely not steamroll them, but beat them comfortably 2-3, maybe even 4-0. I don't see it. I don't see we've got that ruthlessness anymore. We can't score goals at the minute. There's only Ronaldo that's scoring for us. We're not taking, as I said to you before, that risk. We're not going rogue in matches. We're not doing everything possible to scrape and claw your way over that line to victory. We're not. if we had to run bare feet on 100 meters, our players would say no, they wouldn't bother. You know,
It's too uncomfortable.
Yeah, but Burnley players would. You know, we wouldn't do it. Oh, it'll hurt my feet. You know, this is the problem that we've got, and this is the why the fan base is so annoyed at the moment. So look, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, but Marcus, I wouldn't be surprised if we lost. I agree with you, mate. To be honest, I think you're right. I really do.
Can I also just say, like, the thing is, I obviously don't want Manchester United to lose. I want us to win, genuinely speaking. But yeah, the thing is, if you look at our results this season, all the results that have frustrated the fan base beyond belief, minus Liverpool and Manchester City, obviously those were terrible. They all have one thing in common. A lot of those teams were struggling. In fact, when Everton took points from us at Old Trafford, right, when we dropped points and I think it was 1-1, Martial scored the opener, they weren't in great form around that time as well. You know, they weren't in great form around that time as well. Watford, they were in terrible form when they played against us. Young Boys, I don't even think they made it out the group stages, but they beat us somehow. The list goes on. Villa were not in particularly great form when they played us, and then Coutinho comes, and it's this whole romantic thing of him coming back to get revenge against the mighty Reds. There's so many examples. Norwich, we did win that game, but if you remember, it was because of a penalty. We didn't play that well. Yeah, Burnley, Newcastle. The list goes on of teams that are struggling, but they come to Old Trafford, or we're going to Goodison Park, so I guess they invite us to their backyard and they turn up. And this is the game. I always say it, Manchester United is the team you want to play this season if you're struggling, because that's the confidence boost you will need. So it's a weird, man. It's a weird one. Like, I could genuinely see us losing this game, and I hope we don't. And I hope we see a good performance. I hope we see a 4-0, 3-0. You know, like a 1-0 would be pretty embarrassing. If we won 1-0 and it was because of a penalty, that would still be pretty embarrassing. So if we are going to win this game, I hope it's a good win. But I don't know. We're so unpredictable, man. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
I'm loving the optimism. I can't disagree with either of you, but you know, it's a sign of the times, isn't it? It really is. But yeah, on that good note, a very positive note that we're going to end it on.
Hugely positive.
You know, prove us wrong, Manchester United. Please, we're begging you, prove us wrong. But on that note, we will end. Stu, Marcus, as ever, very, very, very good to have you on. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, as ever. Be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us massively. If you did enjoy the video, of course. If not, then do what you want, I suppose. But yeah, stay tuned this weekend. We'll have loads of coverage before and after the game. So yeah, All for United is the place to be. Be sure to tune in, like, subscribe, and we'll see you later.